Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to take some of the most challenging, complex, and potentially life-altering research and really distill it down for you.
We want to give you that shortcut to being profoundly well-informed.
Exactly. And today, we are taking on something monumental. We're examining the very motivational engine of human behavior.
The physics of our deepest emotions and really the path to genuine fulfillment. It's a huge topic.
It is. And we're diving deep into a truly ambitious piece of work centered on the insights of a clinical psychologist, Dr. Michael Lukens.
And Dr. Lukens brings, over 3 decades of clinical experience, just years of observation and analysis into his understanding of why we do what we do.
His findings are all laid out in this massive 3-volume book series. The title is The Physics of Emotioning, a constructivist understanding of the motivational forces governing volitional behavior.
It's a mouthful.
It is. It's a huge undertaking. Volume 1 is published, but volumes 2 and 3 are still in press. So this is, an unfolding body of work in the public eye.
And at the very heart of this huge comprehensive theory lies one foundational, absolutely critical concept. It's his definition of the essence of pure love.
Right. Dr. Lukens calls this committed benevolent interest.
Or CBI for short. And he posits that this meta-emotion, as he calls it, is the literal, indispensable saving grace for humankind.
And it operates in ways that are often profound, but also subtle, and as we'll see, frequently paradoxical.
That's the key, the paradoxes.
So our mission today is to really unpack that claim. We need to define CBI, explore the immense paradoxes it creates in our relationships, and I think confront some of the ironies of our own protective defenses.
And share some of the challenging conclusions this theory forces us to confront about how we, live and love.
Okay, let's get into it. So if CBI is this aspirational highest level of love, where does Lukens tell us to look for the purest example of it?
He directs us immediately, and I think unsurprisingly, to the parent-child relationship.
Makes sense.
Right. And while we're not the only species to show these strong bonds, this relationship, at its very best, serves as Mother Nature's blueprint for the highest levels of selfless investment and care. It's where love often reaches its peak, even if only, as you said, aspirationally.
Let's break down those components, though, the C, the B, and the I, because they're very specific, and I think they're necessary for the whole theory to hold up.
Absolutely. The C stands for commitment. And this isn't, a temporary feeling. It's not devotion for a weekend. This is often a commitment for life.
A long-term investment.
A long-term investment in the welfare and the very existence of another person. It's that unconditional promise of presence.
Okay, so that's C. What about B?
The B is for benevolence or kindness, but it extends way beyond just being nice. The sources Lukens draws on emphasize this can be to the point of even being obsessed with your well-being.
Obsessed, that's a strong word.
It is. It's meant to convey an active, relentless dedication to the positive experience of the other, not just passive well-wishing.
And then finally, the I, for interest.
Yes. And interest here means an almost obsessive focus on the child's existence, their growth, their experience.
The opposite of emotional neglect.
The polar opposite. It is deep, it's tailored, it's personal attention. So when you put those 3 together, lifelong commitment, dedicated kindness, and obsessive personal interest, you get CBI, the engine of what he calls generative love.
But here's the paradox we have to hit right away. We all know parental love is often imperfect, to say the least.
Right. The source material grants that immediately. This ideal prototype, this pure CBI, it exists right alongside this vast potential for dysfunction.
So how does Lukens explain that? How does he define the difference between healthy CBI and love that has, let's say, gone a bit sideways?
That's where he introduces the concept of the functional overlay. Or, maybe more accurately, the neurosis that overlays and corrupts the healthy CBI that's underneath.
So the core love might be there, but the execution gets messed up.
The execution is governed by the parent's own unresolved internal stuff, their fears, their pain, their own history.
Can you give us a clearer definition of that neurosis in this specific context? Because when people hear a term like erotic fear, which he uses, they can jump to some really wrong conclusions.
Absolutely. That's a crucial clarification. When Lukens uses erotic fear, he is not talking about anything sexual, not at all. He's referring to the fear of loss.
Ah, okay, attachment anxiety.
Exactly. The intense attachment anxiety that drives certain behaviors. And this fear, this neurosis can manifest as extreme protectiveness or control. Think of the classic helicopter parent.
Okay, so their motivation is still rooted in love, the benevolence and the commitment are
Yes,
there.
they're there, but the interest component gets corrupted.
How so?
The interest shifts. It moves away from the child's actual thriving and focuses on the parent's need for guaranteed safety and control. The fear of loss is what's driving the bus.
They stop reacting to the child's reality.
Exactly. They stop using their eyes and ears and their own emotional intelligence and their own empathy coming from CBI. Instead, they react based on what their neurosis is screaming at them.
So if the child tries something new, expresses independence,
The parent experiences fear. And the reaction, the controlling behavior, is designed to soothe the parent's fear, not support the child's growth. The execution gets corrupted, even if the root intention was love. The child's actual experience is completely lost in the parent's projection.
this analysis of imperfect love, it leads to a really challenging conclusion. One that I think probably lands hard for a lot of parents listening.
Oh, for sure.
It's the idea that, 99% of self-aware good parents
Yeah.
eventually realize they could have done better.
It's a very humbling conclusion because it removes all the external blame and it places the focus squarely on, well, the human condition. It's not about intentional malice. It's about timing and development.
What do you mean by timing?
Self-aware parents realized they weren't fully healed and grown up before their children arrived. They were still carrying their own baggage.
Unresolved traumas, maybe still being a teenager in some ways.
Right, or still grappling with their own identity struggles. Maybe, as the text says, they hadn't truly left home themselves, psychologically speaking.
So the child ends up paying the price for the parent's incomplete psychological development.
Precisely. They paid the price for that unresolved trauma or that immaturity. The parent looks back and realizes, my love was committed and benevolent, but my own neurosis meant I lacked the clarity of interest to see my child purely without projecting all my own needs onto them.
And that realization, that personal baggage, interrupted the flow of pure CBI. That's the starting point for understanding how love operates.
And how it has to move from just receiving to actively generating.
That sets the stage perfectly for our next section. The critical distinction between generating and receiving love. The source material says this distinction is absolutely fundamental.
It is. It's fundamental to mental health and what he calls developmental completion. We have to clearly separate 4 distinct dynamics of love that people usually just lump together.
Okay, what are the 4?
First, there's experiencing love, which is the emotional state. Second, generating love, the internal capacity and the desire to give. Third is contributing from that love, so the actual behavior. And fourth, receiving love, which is the result of someone else's contribution.
And the initial state, infancy, is so elegantly designed by Mother Nature to just blur all these lines together.
Oh, it's a masterclass in developmental biology. We are born receivers, obviously. We're completely dependent. But, and this is key, the source emphasizes that we are also born generators.
How so?
Well, when the caregiver is loving on the baby, what does the baby do? It responds, it coos, it smiles, it has that positive affect.
And that just lights the parent up.
It lights the lover up right back. It's a mutual lighten up. The baby's positive contribution literally fuels the caregiver's CBI. In that state, love is in the air, and the distinction between generating and receiving is minimal because they're happening at the same time in this perfect little cycle.
That sounds like a beautiful, benign cycle. But the source material suggests that happiness and full human development rely on growing out of that receiving role, and quickly.
Not just growing out of it, but aggressively becoming a generator. That is the crucial pivot point.
We start as receivers because we have to.
We must.
Yeah.
But the whole trajectory of happiness and self-actualization is predicated on transitioning into a generator. And not just a casual one, but one who is, and I'm quoting here, eager to drop their love on everything and everybody. Someone who sees the world as an opportunity for CBI expression.
To get to the head of that line.
Exactly. They don't wait to be asked.
Okay, so if the optimal path is to make that transition quickly, to get to the front of the line, why do so many people seem to remain predominantly receivers their whole lives? Always feeling dependent, or maybe entitled to receive first?
Lukens' analysis offers a really profound insight here. He says it is almost always a reactive issue, not a less than issue.
Meaning what?
Meaning it's not that they are inherently less capable of love. It's that they are stuck, and they're stuck because of trauma and pain.
Trauma necessitates defense mechanisms.
Right. And those defenses require the individual to seek out predictable, safe, transactional deals. If I can guarantee I'm going to receive something, then I feel safe. And that defensive wall just keeps them stuck in a perpetual state of receiving.
This leads directly to what the source calls the double-edged sword of trauma. We should probably spend a minute on this.
Yeah, this is critical because it explains why healing is so difficult. The first edge of the sword is the initial hit, the event or process that caused off-the-charts damage.
The metaphorical mushroom cloud of pain.
Right, that's the damage everyone recognizes. But the second, continuous edge of the sword is the maintenance of the necessary defense mechanism itself.
So the defense, which was initially required for survival, becomes the ongoing source of suffering.
Exactly. The defense mechanism, the very thing you put in place to protect your fragile self from more harm, simultaneously prevents the necessary healing from even being allowed to happen.
It walls off the pain.
But it also walls off the capacity for genuine, unburdened generation of love. If I'm stuck behind my defensive wall, I can't easily put my love out there first because my top priority is safety and receiving guaranteed input. This just leads to continuous damage and stagnation.
And that perfectly explains the next irony he points out. For people who are trapped by this trauma defense, the act of receiving love becomes grossly overrated.
It does. For those who are undernourished, who didn't get their turn in that initial generous flow of CBI receiving takes on this exaggerated importance, it's like a starvation response.
They feel they have to get a lot first.
Right, they have to fill their own tank to overflowing before they can even think about moving generously into giving. And this creates a perpetual state of hunger where the focus is always external. They're waiting for the external validation, the external input, to make them whole enough to start generating.
And the source material is crystal clear on this. They are chasing a mirage. They're looking for the gold mine or the peak of the mountain in receiving.
And Lukens asserts it's simply not there. It's the great societal illusion we all buy into, the idea that popularity or wealth or constant adoration will fulfill us.
But the theory states that true fulfillment, the real peak of the mountain, is achieved through the courageous, unburdened act of generating CVI.
When you are generating, you are living up to your developmental mandate. When you're only receiving, you are in a state of arrested development, no matter how much you manage to accumulate.
That is a powerful challenge to, our whole consumer culture, which frames happiness as acquisition, which is fundamentally a form of receiving.
It really is.
So if receiving is secondary to generating, we have to look much more closely at what we actually receive when CBI is directed toward us. And that brings us to the next section, the products of love.
Right, and this section introduces a deep theoretical clarification. The value of what we receive changes so dramatically as we grow up. In infancy, what we receive is literal survival, sustenance.
But in childhood, it gets more complex.
It does. The village or the community might offer a sort of generic benevolence, but it often lacks the tailored commitment and the resources that a primary caretaker offers. So it's a different quality of input.
So we need a way to measure the impact of this received care. What's the yardstick? What determines the value we attach to the things we receive?
The yardstick is the product. And the profound insight here is that we don't necessarily receive the abstract feeling of love itself. We receive the products of that love.
Okay, unpack that. Love is the engine.
Love, or CBI, is the generative engine.
Yeah.
And the product is the tangible, felt outcome of that engine running.
Give us an example to make that distinction really clear.
Okay, so imagine a person whose CBI expresses itself almost entirely through ensuring physical and emotional safety. Their commitment means they are on duty around the clock, they're anticipating threats, providing stability.
So the product you receive from their love isn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling.
No, the product is the genuine, pervasive feeling of safety around the clock. The value attached to that product is immense. Another example. If a parent's CBI focuses on fostering curiosity, the product the child receives is intellectual self-esteem and the freedom to explore.
So love isn't just a feeling of connection. It's the commitment in action, the CVI, that reliably produces a highly valued psychological state, like safety or feeling cherished or being seen.
Exactly. So if we're seeking validation, we're seeking a specific product of love.
We seek to be cherished, seen, heard, and this links receiving directly to the repair of our self-esteem.
Absolutely. The sources point out that many people are motivated by this sort of transactional belief. If you would only love me, then I would find myself generating love. They need that external validation product first.
Which implies that, for them, the initial generation of love is often seen as accidental or incidental. It needs an external trigger to prove that it's safe or that they're worthy.
That's the operational definition of what he calls the self-esteem repair loop. If my internal story, my narrative, tells me I'm unlovable or flawed, I need a respected external source to contradict that story.
It's like a trusted review.
It's exactly like that. If someone I respect and love tells me I am lovable, that external affirmation helps repair my relationship with myself. It's the psychological equivalent of saying, you know what, I trust your judgment. If you tell me this movie is good, I'll watch it. You tell me I'm lovable. Well, maybe I'm not that hard to love myself after all. Receiving that product facilitates essential internal repair.
That makes perfect sense for someone who's healing. But here's the logical leak Lukens proposes.
Yes.
If receiving love makes it easier to generate love, why wait for that benign cycle to begin accidentally?
Why wait for the external trigger?
Right. Why wait?
And this is the challenging conclusion that drives the entire developmental model forward. We shouldn't wait. We should proactively create the benign cycle. We should put love out there first, quickly, without requiring a guarantee of return or reciprocity.
And waiting for that external trigger means, as the source bluntly puts it,
It means ripping everybody off.
that is some strong language. Who exactly are we ripping off by waiting?
Well, we're ripping off the potential recipients of our CBI, obviously. But more importantly, we are ripping ourselves off by delaying our own development. The ultimate goal of human development, according to this entire theory, is to receive well so that we can grow up and learn to give abundantly, and by doing that, complete our development.
So receiving is necessary.
It's necessary for sustenance, for repair, for learning how to be loved. But giving is necessary for the completion of the human mandate. By waiting, we are perpetually unfinished.
But completing that development, that requires confronting the defensive architecture we've built. And that's incredibly difficult. That full circle of love is constantly interrupted.
Which leads us right into the next section and the traps of our own defensive mechanisms.
We're circling back to those defenses we built against the initial trauma. And here's the massive paradox. The defense mechanism we created to protect us from self-esteem damage invariably produces more self-esteem damage.
It's a tragic, vicious cycle.
That just sounds so counterintuitive. How does a defense, which is designed to protect, actively cause more damage?
Well, think about the mechanisms. If I fear rejection, my defense might be to be preemptively hostile or to isolate myself. I push people away before they can hurt me. What's the result? I get rejected anyway, or I feel the deep sting of loneliness, which just reinforces the initial wound that I am unlovable or I am unsafe. The defense creates the very outcome it was designed to prevent.
And Lukens says this isn't just limited to self-esteem.
No. A defense against grief-like emotional numbing or denial often produces almost nothing besides a chronic low-grade grief that can never be processed or resolved. The defenses keep us stuck behind a wall that prevents us from ever moving into that generative identity.
So if the mechanism itself is so destructive, the focus has to shift. And the answer the material offers is to abandon blame.
That's the therapeutic pivot. We have to stop blaming the defense. It was necessary at the time it was built. We stop blaming the initial pain, and we certainly stop blaming the person who has the pain that built the defense. Blame is just irrelevant to the solution.
Instead, you bring CBI, the committed benevolent interest, to the core question.
Right. What do we do with the state of affairs? The action we take must support healing without hurting too much while we do it. And abandoning blame is what allows us to shift the focus entirely to action and repair.
Now, let's pivot slightly to another really profound observation he makes, this time about the difference between genuine CBI and its substitutes. He does this through the lens of childhood generosity.
Yeah, he explores these varying levels of generosity in children and what they reveal about the environment they're in.
He starts with a simple example of a child with 27 French fries.
Right. And their innocent, self-favoring generosity is developmental. It's, I got 27 fries here, you can have 3.
It's sweet, but it's still fundamentally self-serving.
Oh, completely. But they think it's a huge act of generosity because they just thought of it. It's a learning step.
But now contrast that with his description of the highly loving child whose generosity is total, but whose environment might be kind of stifling.
This is the heartbreaking example. This child might offer, you can have all 27 of my fries, a total offering of their attention and their resource. But if you refuse, if you say, oh, no, thank you, I'll just take half,
The child loses their appetite.
they lose their appetite entirely. They might even withdraw. And the source interprets this as a sign that the child's loving embers are burning out. Their genuine CBI has no place for it to go in an environment that either doesn't appreciate the depth of the offering or, even worse, rejects it.
When their love is rejected, They lose their ability to receive, too.
It's a tragic developmental setback.
And this leads directly to the toxic substitute paradox, which is embodied by the familiar figure of the spoiled child.
Right. The child who seemingly gets everything but remains perpetually unhappy and demanding.
And the source material is adamant on this point. The spoiled child is not overloved. They are deprived.
They're deprived of genuine CBI, which Lukens refers to as the nourishing honey. Instead, they are fed substitutes. They are given saccharin, an artificial toxic stain.
Things like material goods, performative praise.
Permissive behavior designed to avoid conflict or compensate for a parent's absence. The lack of genuine, committed, benevolent interest is replaced by transactional, superficial inputs.
So the parent might give a new toy every single day.
And that's a product of money and guilt, not genuine CBI. And this isn't just an imperfect substitute, it is actively damaging. It teaches the child that superficiality equals love, and that the world operates on a purely transactional basis.
So the external abundance is masking a severe internal deficiency.
A profound form of deprivation. It's teaching the child all the wrong motivational forces.
That is a crucial insight for understanding dysfunctional dynamics, where what looks like commitment or benevolence on the surface is actually this profound toxic deficiency underneath.
It is.
Okay, so if we want to move past the saccharin and fully adopt the generative identity, we have to confront the final hurdle, the price of becoming a generator.
And this is where we encounter what he calls the credit card analogy. Most people culturally approach love and generosity like a credit card system.
They want to have it now and pay later.
Exactly. They want the immediate emotional payoff of feeling loving or generous. Very upfront investment of emotional labor or commitment.
They want the feeling of being in love or the feeling of being a good person without the risk.
Without the full commitment, without the patience required for genuine CBI to mature and produce lasting products, they want love to be an instantaneous transaction, not a long-term investment.
But the challenging conclusion here is definitive. It's absolute.
Generating love is a pay-now-get-later venture.
It requires investment up front.
Investment up front, regardless of guaranteed return. You must put the CBI out there first, the commitment, the benevolence, the interest, and then trust the process that the rewards, like fulfillment and development and those benign cycles, will materialize over time.
And that's why Lukens notes, a lot of us don't come to this easily.
We are hardwired to prefer the transactional pay-later model of receiving over the investment model of giving. It requires overcoming all those defensive mechanisms that prioritize immediate safety.
And if we can accept that difficult pay-now-get-later model, we can transition into the final section and the really profound implications of adopting the generative identity for humanity.
This is CBI at the aspirational level, applied universally. The ideal generator intentionally assumes the role of the parent or the caretaker, even if they don't have biological children.
They transition from focusing on their own self-repair to focusing on contribution.
And the scope of this caretaking just expands immensely. It goes way beyond the family unit. It becomes a dedication to everything you value and encounter.
So it demands generating CBI moment by moment, everywhere.
Everywhere. This is not just a philosophy for, a Sunday morning. It applies whether you are at the beach, appreciating nature, in the mountains, showing respect for the environment, or even on the highway, showing patience and common courtesy to other drivers.
The generative identity requires this fundamental, constant shift in philosophical perspective and in behavior.
Right. And that philosophy is encapsulated in this grand vision that Lukens presents for the generator.
The whole world is my child. The whole world is my child's playground. I live to take care of both.
It's a beautiful, expansive vision of pure CBI extended beyond the self and your immediate relations. If you genuinely see the world as a sacred place, the playground and everything in it as something deserving of your committed, benevolent interest, your actions naturally begin to align with a higher purpose.
I understand the theory, but let me ask the practical question here. Isn't that grand vision, the whole world is my child, isn't that just too idealistic? How does one person with finite resources avoid becoming completely overwhelmed or cynical when they're confronted with global suffering?
That is the exact tension the source acknowledges immediately. The generator realizes they have no idea how to get it all done. They can't logically operationalize caring for the whole world.
You don't know the specific behavior required in every overwhelming scenario?
You don't. And this is where the trust element comes in. The solution is not knowing the how. The solution is trusting that their heart, their authentic CBI is in the right place, and then acting locally from that global commitment.
So the action is guided by intention, not by a guaranteed outcome.
Yes.
But acting from that overwhelming intention, that immediately creates internal friction. And that leads us to the final paradoxes of action for the individual trying to live generatively.
And these paradoxes really demonstrate the narrow path the generator has to walk. The first pair relates to scale and self-importance. If the generator takes that grand vision too literally, too aggressively.
They risk grandiosity. If I get grandiose, I'll be my own worst enemy.
Exactly.
How does grandiosity sabotage CBI?
Grandiosity means you think you have to save everyone right now, or that your methods are the only correct ones. You overcommit, you burn out, you become arrogant, and you lose the humility that's required for genuine benevolence.
You stop listening.
You stop using your eyes and ears because you think you already have all the answers. Your own neurosis of self-importance replaces the authentic CBI.
Okay, so conversely, if you react to that fear of grandiosity by playing it too safe, by playing too small,
You'll also be your own worst enemy. If you restrict the necessary flow of your CBI because you're afraid of the emotional labor or the criticism, you hinder your own full circle of development. You become this small, safe version of yourself, preventing the abundance of generosity that's required for completion.
you fail the mandate.
You fail the generative mandate.
Okay, so the next set of conflicts are about control versus flow. If I try to just go with the flow, passively accepting whatever the world offers,
The world will knock you around. The world is full of that saccharin, the toxic substitutes, and all the trauma-induced defenses we've been talking about. Passive acceptance means you're just subject to the currents of others' unhealed pain and neuroses.
you're not actively generating your own benign cycle.
Right. A true generator has to be active, not passive.
And yet, if you try to control it all, to micromanage every single outcome to make sure your CBI is successful,
You'll lose control, invariably. The world is too complex, too unpredictable, and other people's free will is not yours to manage.
so that effort to micromanage CBI, it leads to the same controlling neuroses we talked about in the parent-child prototype.
Exactly. The attempt to control outcomes is a defense mechanism against risk, and that stifles genuine generosity.
So we have these four impossible traps: grandiosity, playing small, going with the flow, or trying to control everything. How do we resolve these conflicts? How do you navigate that narrow path?
The resolution is found in the ultimate conclusion about authenticity. The only way to move forward without being your own worst enemy or losing control is to act authentically from that place of genuine CBI.
Authenticity, in this context, means aligning your action with your heart's highest, most unburdened intention.
It's acting from the core you.
Yes. The moment you act in a way that betrays your authentic generative heart, the moment you choose the defense mechanism over the investment, you have already failed the mission of CBI. The internal resolution is simple but profound.
If I do anything else, I won't be me.
It's a commitment to yourself that simultaneously fuels your commitment to others. It's the highest form of self-loyalty.
It is.
That brings us full circle through Dr. Lukens' monumental work, The Physics of Emotioning. We see that committed benevolent interest, CBI, isn't just a definition of love. It's the fundamental engine of human motivation and the required path for developmental completion.
It demands that we shift our focus, our priority. The saving grace for humanity isn't external, it's the internal capacity to generate. We have to move from being the dependent receiver, which is our birthright and our necessary starting point,
To the abundant, courageous giver, our necessary developmental goal.
And the deepest value of the human experience, according to this entire theory, is not in being loved or validated, but in finding oneself capable of loving.
It's initiating that benign cycle from within, even when it requires that difficult upfront payment.
And that journey requires confronting and dismantling those entrenched defensive walls we built against trauma. We acknowledge that generating love requires us to pay now, get later, and that the defense mechanism against damage often causes more damage.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought, something for you to mull over today as you confront the world's complexities and its demands. Considering the steep price of defense, that perpetual state of receiving, what personal defense mechanism are you prioritizing right now that might be costing you more grief or self-esteem damage than it's saving you?
And what small, authentic step could you take today to embrace the generative identity, trusting that your heart is in the right place and acting as if the whole world is your child's playground?